Yeah, hiya, and welcome back in. It's another fine day here at VGMporium, and it's another fine day for a grab bag. So I got some tracks here for you that were selected semi-randomly, if that's possible. Mostly originals, as well as a couple of covers. So we're gonna kind of make this kind of a quickie one because my allergies are starting to try to kick back in, and I want to do this before the worst of it starts rolling in. So please excuse me if a sniff or any kind of weird sound kind of makes its way in here. I'm going to try my best to keep it out. So, this funky SID tune that we came in on was a demo track from Goat Tracker titled I'll Be Pimpin' in Cabrini Green, and in the author tab in the tracker it says When I Grow Up. So, I take that as just a continuation of the track's title, and the composer for this is unknown. So you heard me mention Goat Tracker. What is that? It is a tracking program that is Windows and Linux based that is used for creating SID tunes, and it's a pretty in-depth tool for making it. It actually exports .SID files that you could actually use in an actual Commodore 64, I think, on an actual SID chip. But yeah, how it works is it's just like I said, a tracker program. You have the 3 channels of wavetable. You have the song matrix, which you can put in the numbered patterns that you want. The instruments editor, which is pretty straightforward. It's all hexadecimal, so no graphical interface as far as dials or anything like that. And then there's the table matrix of wavetable, the filter, pulse, and the speed of which those things go at. And it's just this big old thing, and you can select those parameters to go inside the instrument editor. And yeah, it's back in the late 2000s, I was trying to figure out how to use trackers, and this is one of the first ones I found for some reason. And yeah, this is not the best for making that jump from, Fruity Loops and Reason, which are all have the graphical piano roll and the, dials and all the knobs and stuff and the different sounds. And yeah, would not recommend doing that. That still didn't stop me from loading up the demo tracks and just listening to them and watching them go and just being mesmerized by how it all worked and everything. I couldn't make heads or tails of it. And, of course, opened up Audacity, put it on stereo mix, and recorded them as they played so that I could have them on my MP3 player because they were all really good, and I was really into SID tunes at the time. Really starting to really dig into, the chiptune stuff. But now let's move into something that was made in a standard DAW, though it could still be considered chiptune, maybe fake bit, but it's made using the sampled instruments from the SNES. This is Starlight Plateau by Maxo from level 5 of his Level Music series. You just listened to Starlight Plateau by Maxo from level 5 of his level music series. So what is level music? Who is Maxo? Well, I'll tell you who Maxo is. His real name is Max Coburn, and he is a composer, arranger, electronic musician. And I found him back in 2010, which is, I think, around the time he started. It's like the album I first found was called Fake Bit 2010, which is basically what it is, just fake bit music. And then, like, throughout the years, he's contributed to, like, I Miss You, Earthbound 2012, which is a whole arrangement album of Earthbound music. Make Music, Throw Music, a Yoshi Island's tribute, which is basically all music made using the Yoshi's Island, sample instruments and everything from the SNES. And then he's gone on to create a lot of more original music, remixes, arrangements. 2015, he had his first major album release, Chord Slayer, and then from there he composed music for games like Bum Rush, Sky Chasers, Combo Critters. Was involved with a Celeste B-Sides, which is again another arrangement album of the music from Celeste. The most recent games credits I could find for him was for Crossy Road Castle and the soundtrack for soon-to-be-released Netflix animation Battle Kitty. And all throughout that time, from basically 2010 to 2016, he was doing this whole series called Level Music, which is basically he would release an album of 5 songs each, he would actually release 2 of at a time. So he started with Level A and Level N, and it was just all music made using the samples of the SNES music, or more specifically using sound fonts created by this guy, William Kage. And alright, now let's make some clarifications here. A sound font is a file that is a collection of samples that have all the loop data, all everything just kind of already figured out, so you can just load it up in a DAW, load it in a sound font player like SFZ, or I don't remember, it's been so long since I've used one, but you have access to all these samples, it's like a whole sample bank, and you can just use it, not have to worry about editing it or anything. You just play with it. But it is the original sounds though are all, like I said, samples from the Super Nintendo, which again were using samples from synthesizers at the time, or sample wavetable players, sample things, whatever. So yeah, the original SNES music, sample based, and then people can make music with sound fonts made from these samples ripped from the SNES, or even just ripped from those original synths and loaded into these little sample databases. And sorry for that little tangent there. It's just there's a lot of discourse around sound fonts and people referring to stuff from sound chips, so stuff made on the NES or the Sega Genesis as sound fonts on those original chips, which is not true, because they are synthesizers. These are synthesizer chips, and then you can record samples of these sounds being made by the chips and then make a sound font from that, but the original sounds aren't sound font based. It's just some clarification for some of the youngins that only know these sounds from sound fonts. Nothing against them, nothing against sound fonts. They're really cool tools to use in modern music making for those that really can't use say a tracker program that emulates these sound chips. It gives them easy access to that stuff. Or for SNES music, there's not really an easy way to make it. If you wanted to export it to an SPC file and load it into a ROM and then put it on a card and play it on an actual hardware, unless you use Mod Plug Tracker, using those samples and then export it, put it through a weird program, a program that turns it into a SPC file, or there's a couple trackers out there like GSS Tracker and SNES Tracker, but SNES Tracker is currently halted development, and it's buggy, and then GSS is just really weird to use. As far as making SNES music in a DAW, there is another option. If you don't want to hunt down for sound fonts, because William Kage's website has pretty a lot of them, but it's not all these sounds that you may be looking for a specific one. There's a plugin called C700, which is a you can take an SPC file, an actual SNES music file, from the individual level music that you want, and it has a certain instrument in there that you don't hear in the other parts of the game or whatever. You can load it into this plugin, and it'll actually give you all the samples from this entire music file, even the sound effects, and you can play with those, and it's actually pretty comprehensive. It emulates the the SPC 700 pretty well, and you can like it gives you like the options for all the echo and loop controls and everything, and it's and the filter and everything. And it's pretty cool. Like I've used it for making a couple things, and I like it preferably over sound fonts because it gives you a lot more of that authentic control over it. Now back to this level music. So Maxo started out using all these sounds, including the percussion, but then in the later levels, he decided to start using, I saw in a note, Battery by Native Instruments, which is like, a pretty comprehensive, like, drum something rather like heavy duty plugin, which is the percussion that I just heard in this track. And I would definitely recommend you go check it all out. I mean, there's like 23 of them, so that's 115 tracks right there. Full original tracks, 5 songs per album, plus a best of album he did, and then an album all made up of like remixes by other musicians of the time. So like Nowhere to name one, I believe Floor Baba as well, and then he did a whole album called Level Music Purchase, which is based off all these areas on this campus of the school that he went to called Purchase, I believe, and he did as an actual project for one of his classes. So that's even more amazing. I think there's like over 40 tracks of that. So that's like, over 150, maybe only nearly 200 tracks alone, and with within 6 years. Madness. So yeah, I'm going to be linking that in the show notes to like the Bandcamp where he has all of this music at. Because I would definitely recommend you go listen to it. And now things are going to get a little buzzy around here, because we're going to be listening to a cover from the ZX Spectrum. What is that? It's called Axel Funk by Factor 6, a cover of Axel F, originally composed by Harold Faltermeyer for Beverly Hills Cop. That was Axel Funk by Factor 6, a cover of Axel F, the theme song for Beverly Hills Cop, originally composed by Harold Faltermeyer. And this tune was made using the AY38910 chip, specifically from the ZX Spectrum, the 128K. How am I sure of this? Well, the fellow who did this song, Factor 6, real name Alan Bastian Witkowski, is part of a group called AY Writers, which is a group that focuses specifically on making the AY music on the ZX Spectrum. And also due to the fact that this song is from a compilation called ZX Spectrum is Alive, released by 8-Bit Peoples. So Factor 6 has primarily been involved in making demo music for the ZX Spectrum using that AY chip, as well as, the Amiga. And then as for the song Axel F that it is covering, what adult nowadays who grew up in the 90s and 80s, doesn't know this song? It was from, Beverly Hills Cop, and it's just such a iconic and memorable tune. I mean, just those opening synths that a little set off just the whole song going in my head. So a little more history. When I was initially starting to dive into the whole world of original chip tunes and stuff, I was finding I was liking the SID chip, the AY stuff, all this really crazy buzzy stuff I'd never heard before. And this is before my taste started gearing towards the FM stuff. So I'm not just a one-trick pony when it comes to video game music and chip tunes. I like it all. It's just right now I'm really into FM stuff. That's my cup of tea. But this grab bag isn't just full of chips. It's also full of some Digifusion here. So up next I got Meteor Shower Pro by Joshua Morse. That was Meteor Shower Pro by Joshua Morse, part of the compilation album Magnetic Sumo, released by Pause Net label in 2010. And Joshua Morse, where do I start with this guy? He's a bit of a powerhouse, this one, as far as the online video game music and like original like chiptune community. I think he's like one of the pioneers of the genre that is called digital fusion, which is basically like, jazz fusion, which is like, jazz and rock and prog rock and all these things put together and played live, synths and all. But instead, it's programmed using like, like digital synths and like video game sounds, like actually implementing like, either Sega Genesis, Super Nintendo, NES, whatever, like all these sounds that, we grew up with in the 90s and 80s, and just slapping it in together and creating like these awesome just like soundscapes of just nostalgic madness, while also being like this totally new thing that you've never heard before, and is constantly evolving. Like the definition of digital fusion is just always, well, not definition, but just like the sound, it encompasses all these different things, and it's always evolving, always changing, so it's not just one set thing, which is really the cool thing about it. And Joshua is truly a pioneer in just like music composition, because he's out to prove that, not all jazz is just elevator music, and not all video game music is just like these bleeps and bloops, it's just simplicity thing. Kind of started out like in the mid-2000s, contributing to a lot of like remix albums and whatnot, like, OC remix and everything. Like the first thing he contributed to was Bound Together, an Earthbound remix project in 2005. And then would go on to actually start creating his own original musics, of course. And his first major one was Waveform, which is a combination of like just like all these different like FM synths that he just had and just made, and they were all just kind of like geared towards his nostalgia of playing Sega Genesis, and would just keep on going on to like creating original albums, doing a lot of arrangements, and then eventually would come up to doing this for Magnetic Sumo. And there's just so much. He contributed to Soundshock 2 FM Funk Terror. Go back to episode 9 for that. And then, continue to do more waveforms, which are all just like, combinations of like, Sega Genesis, SNES, NES. He had like one song that he kept coming back to called Turtle Wave, which is just like this theme he made that kind of vaguely, like brought up the images of like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and he just kind of like rearranged it for each album. It's really damn cool. He's also composed music for video games, so to name a few, he did Onslaught, Lunchbug, Lava Blade, and Lizard's Wizard. And most recently, his original compositions in these things called Chipset, which again is fusing like the sounds of the Sega Genesis and the SNES, but then playing them through recording them onto a like cassette tape to get like that nice warm, warbly, fuzzy sound. And it's all just like this really cool, just like New Jack swing sound. And I would highly recommend you go listen to it. I'm gonna link his website on the show notes, and you go listen to his music because it's just so good. And now I'm gonna bring this down to a close, the last item in the grab bag. And what is it? It's another chiptune D-Make cover. What of? Well, I'm about to tell you. Now listen here. You listening? Okay, here we go. This is Squarepusher Theme, originally by Squarepusher from his first album, Feed Me Weird Things, arranged into an NES tune by Bob. That was Squarepusher Theme, NES cover by Bob. Originally programmed and performed by Squarepusher for his album Feed Me Weird Things. And as you can hear right here, folks, that humble 2A03 is fully capable of recreating some good drum and bass. Now, how did Bob do this, you ask? Well, seeing as according to the NSF, this was made in 2003, 2 years before FamiTracker was even released to the public. The most likeliest wrote this in MML, Music Macro Language, and then fed it through a driver to get that tasty NSF file that we're listening to right now. And as to who Bob is, I don't know. All I know is he's got his own folder in the covers folder of the 2A03 Archive 3.0, which is just chocked full of countless NSF files, both originals and covers, by so many peoples, a lot of them unnamed. And just like the budding dork I was, I played them all through this program, GNSF, which I'm still using today. And, exported them as WAV, put them into Audacity, edited them to be able to, loop twice and then fade out, exported to MP3, burned them all into CDs. This is before I got my MP3 player. And then I put them on my MP3 player after I got that. But still, on my CDs, I had CDs, just countless CDs of just 8-bit music, chiptune music, video game music, just all this music I was finding just through the internet. It was great. I had maybe 2 books of it. I don't know where they are right now. I still have some, but I don't know where the rest are. Now let me ask you a question. Do you know Squarepusher? Ah, a joke. A good one. I laugh. Well, Squarepusher, real name Thomas Jenkinson, along with a few others like Autechre, Aphex Twin, Venetian Snares, were all just these pioneers just pushing electronic music into these new realms that had never been in before. A lot of them taking inspirations from elements of jungle and drum and bass, and just combining them with complex melodies, weird taking the drum and bass and jungle beats and cutting them up even more and just making them all the more intricate, adding just jazz melodies and weird electronic stuff and just craziness, and just creating this whole new genre that people labeled IDM, intelligent dance music, but it's way more than that. And Squarepusher is definitely went more into the jazz side of it, much more melodic stuff. And I found his stuff was kind of geared more towards my taste of this kind of music. It's I like Aphex Twin, Venetian Snare. It can be a little more harsh at times. Autechre is real, kind of a little bit more kind of all over the place, kind of kind of ambient, a little more calmer. But then there's something like Grans Graf, which is just pure awesome noise, and it just opened up this new just doorways in my head, because I was starting to discover my beatbox style, which was mostly influenced by video game music and kind of standard drum and bass music I was listening to at the time. And then hearing Squarepusher's music, my introduction being Ultra Visitor, which is this just insane, for at the time for me, insane just sounding thing. And it, like I said, influenced my style, and I can now with my mouth do something like this. I don't have quite the proper mic, and my mouth is dry from my allergies kind of kicking in, but hey, that's what I can do. There you have it, Squarepusher, another in the list of folks that influenced my beatboxing that weren't related to beatboxing at all. Before I bring the show to a close, let me explain as to what's going on with this track here. So, we got the square waves doing the chords and everything, and then we got the triangle doing the bass sound, but the drums, it's a combination of a bass drum DP for the sample channel, and then the rest of the percussion is just the noise, just just doing this crazy thing. So yeah, and actually that kind of helpfully kind of segues into what we next week's episode. We're going to be making a dive back into the NES's sound chip, more particularly the 2A03's APU. Going to be looking at the suggestion of Bedroth of Very Good Music podcast and BG Mania. He suggested that I do the same thing I did for the Famicom expansion chip extravaganza, except with Western composers, mostly of the European variety, and how they dealt with the limitations of the NES sound chip. So that'll be next week's episode. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be cool, and hopefully I don't let you all down. All right. Hope you enjoyed this grab bag, and yeah, thank you again for coming into VGMporium, where you can find all your VGM needs, be it like the standard stuff you're looking for, or some obscurities that you didn't know about. Who knows? And yeah, you can find it on all the podcatchers like Apple, Google, Stitcher, Amazon, Spotify, and then social medias like Twitter and Instagram, as well as myself, Rage Cage, on all these social medias. And where I'll occasionally be posting my original chip tunes and my beatboxing, hopefully of better quality when my face isn't trying to explode and implode on itself. So yeah, thank you again for coming into VGMporium, and have yourselves a good rest of your day.